Well, hey guys, just sitting here in the garage, taking a break from the Chevelle, working on a nasty ignition issue. It's really, I'm fighting it, and I just needed a break. Sit down with you guys and talk through a question I actually get a lot. You know, I enjoy helping out with friends and family and church and my community, and I enjoy that, and I enjoy helping out when I can. I'm a tall guy, so can you get something off the top shelf for me? Can you help me move? So most of the time I get asked about to help about something, it's about cars. Either how to fix a car, what might be wrong with the car. But one of the common questions I get asked is, how do you find cars? Because I do buy and sell a fair amount of older cars. And so where do you get them? And then we were in the market for a new to her car for my daughter. And she's one of the trailblazer. She's kind of tired of putting money into it, and she was in the market for something new, and so she's been saving some money. And she's like, "Dad, can you help me find a car?" I said, "Yep, let's go find a car." And I was telling somebody else about this that she was in the market, and they said, "Have you checked Facebook Marketplace? I hear you can find some good deals there." And it occurred to me then that, do people not know about Facebook Marketplace? like, I thought it was funny that somebody thought to tell me, well, maybe you should check Facebook Marketplace, as if I don't know how that works. I just been doing it for so long, I think, that I just forget that that's just not ubiquitous, right? It's just not something everybody knows. Since I got to take a break from the old girl back here, I thought maybe I'd do a quick video on how I find a car. So we're going through this process with my daughter now as she's looking for a decent budget-friendly used car. So I'll kind of focus this effort on how you find yourself a budget-friendly, maybe even super budget friendly used car. So specifically, I'll go into, where do you find the cars, right? What places do you go? What research can you do ahead of time, like from your couch or your office or whatever, like from your phone, before you even contact the seller? How do you contact and communicate with the seller? Like, what kind of things should you say, not say? Stay tuned to the end, because I'll give you a little bit of a bonus on how to find or how to identify scams. First, I guess maybe I ought to throw a little disclaimer in here. I often say in my various videos and repair videos that I'm not saying this is the way you have to do it, the way you should do it, that it's the best way to do it. It's just the way I did it or do it. That's true here too, right? This is not the be all end all. And somebody's going to say, well, that's not what I do. I do this and have much more success. Just giving you hopefully some, kind of unmask or sort of demystify this whole process a little bit, make it a little bit less black box, a little less scary. As you do it, you'll probably find in this different ways of doing it that you find successful, different ways to communicate, different things to look out for. When you read the description of this car, what does it say versus what does it mean? It sounds weird to say that it's a bit of an art form, but there is a bit of an art to reading between the lines, and everybody has a different way of doing it. And you may have a different way of doing it as you get into it, and that's great. This has not worked every time. So I've bought some bad cars. And that sort of adds to to the toolbox, I guess. I'm not trying to tell you how to do it. I'm just trying to tell you how you can do it. All right, so first on this list, where do you find them? A lot of us older folks will remember, rummaging through classified ads in the back of the newspaper. Even those paper Auto Trader type rag magazines that were at like your local convenience store, or Tony's Truck Stop Diner. As a kid, I loved those things. I loved when we would go on road trips and I would stop for gas or stop for munchies, and I'd grab one of those and I'd rummage through that in the car the entire trip. Then you remember Craigslist. So Craigslist is still around, although I think I don't know, in my opinion, it's kind of run its course. I have not found great success with buying vehicles on Craigslist. Not in the last couple of years anyway. But you can still find deals there. It's not dead, but I generally find if it's available on Craigslist, it's available on Facebook. Facebook doesn't give you everything based on the criteria you ask. There's all kinds of algorithms in place where it's trying to maximize the things that they think are of interest to you. I've had it where you pull up a vehicle search and you put in your criterion and a button says, see the 1,000+ vehicles, and then you scroll through about maybe 110, 120, and that's it. There's no more cars left. Like, where's the 1,000+? With Craigslist, you see everything there is to see. And some of it's though total garbage. And so you got to weed through the 1,000 listings to get to the 10 that matter to you. Good and bad of that. Like Facebook is actually doing some effort to whittle down that large list of junk to something that's likely of interest based on the things you've searched for in the past. But it also sometimes gets it wrong. And so some people might like Craigslist because of the freedom of being able to find what they want without the algorithm telling them what they want. And some people like shopping on Facebook because they like the fact that they don't have to, search for click next and next and next and next and page after page after page of stuff that doesn't really line up with what they want. There are other places too you can find used cars. They're a little less budget friendly. When I say budget friendly, I mean super budget friendly. Like that sub $3,000 car, maybe even sub $2,000 car. These other sites like AutoTrader, Cars.com, Car Gurus, they're actually a really nice database of cars, but they tend to focus on a little bit upper end. There are a lot of dealers postings. Every once in a while you'll find a private sale, but it's usually a higher end car. Those sites for private sellers, they have a varying fee structure. None of them are free, totally free. So the cheaper your car, the less you can afford to pay all those fees and commissions and percentages and whatever. So you don't get as many of those really low end cars on those sites. Obviously, car dealerships, like they're on seemingly on every corner. So dealerships, you can find cars there. Just keep in mind, when you buy from a dealer, you're going to pay a markup. You're going to pay a dealer markup. You're going to pay a doc fee. You're going to pay a markup on all of the title and registration work and tag work. You're going to pay, they're going to try to talk you into financing, and you're going to have more money there. You're going to talk you into extended warranties. The cost structure when you get to dealerships actually balloons quite a bit. Again, if you're looking for a real budget-friendly car, that is probably not the place. You start looking up on Craigslist, and you find these dealers that have ads for $1,500, $1,995, buy here, pay here. Guys, avoid that. Avoid that lot at all costs. They're very good at enticing you to buy very bad cars.
Take all the time you want. Nobody's going to pressure anybody around here, Stan. You know something, though, Stan? I really think you ought to buy this Buick. Mm-hmm. I think you ought to buy it today, right now. You want to know why? Because this Buick is you.
Certainly don't get financing there. I realize some people are in a tough spot and need a car to get to work. But honestly, like I would tell one of my kids or my friends, if you were thinking about buying a car from that lot, take the bus. This no good comes from buying from, Crazy L's used cars. And then lastly, if you do some research, if you do a little bit of legwork, so it's a little more involved, but auctions. There's not as many private or public, I should say, public auctions for cars as there used to be. A lot of them are dealer only now, but police auctions, municipal auctions, there's a few still lingering around, like automotive consignment auctions. Those can be a place where you can get a really good deal. In some ways, you don't have as much access to those cars as you would buying from, Joe Blow down the road, where you can maybe take it for a test drive and inquire about the car. You can ask a bunch of questions. You can go look at the car. You can go back home and you can come back and haggle on price if you want, like as a process. With the auction, it's like, look at the cars, buy the car, and cars all sell in one day. You don't have the luxury of let me think about it and we'll talk tomorrow. No, this is the day it's going to sell, and you're on the spot. But if you do some research and you get prepared, and maybe I'll do a video on that too, because I've done that quite a bit as well. A handful of my kids' cars we've gotten at auction and gotten pretty good deals on pretty decent cars. Look up in your local area, see if you have any auctions. Some of them might be a bit of a drive, an hour or so. It takes a little more legwork, but man, you can really find some good deals if you do all that. You've whittled down. You've got your saved list on Facebook or your favorites, I think it's called, on Craigslist. Now what? How do you find out as much as you can? Do you really want to drive around all over creation, seeing every car one by one? You can do a lot of research before you ever leave your couch, and you can, it helps me anyway to prioritize, right? And we live in an internet world where you can get a mountain of research just from your phone. So when I start researching cars, the first thing I search for is just generic make and model research. I've done this enough times. There's a handful of vehicles that I know quite a bit about, but sometimes you're looking at these cars, at some of these, like especially if you're looking at auction cars, and I don't know anything about that car. I don't know anything about a Nissan Murano or a 2007 Mini Cooper. I don't know. I don't know a lot about them, so I need to do some research about them so that I can be as informed as possible. What are their common problems? The average maintenance cost. What's their fuel economy? These are all things that matter when you're looking, especially when you're looking at a budget car. It doesn't do you any good to buy a $1,500 car you got to put $3,000 into. That's not that budget friendly anymore. Then you want to go to price research. So now these aren't necessarily in this order. It's just the next thing on my list. So there's a couple different places that are the most common. There's a lot of places where you can get car values. The two most common ones are Kelley Blue Book or KBB.com and the NADA.com sites. There's a lot of other places you can use. Those are the two I use the most common. We'll go through real quick just to get an idea. So let's pick I have this Trailblazer. Let's pick a Trailblazer. Stop it. Chevrolet. Scroll down to Trailblazer. Put in your own zip code there. And so it gives you some details, and you're just going to go get my car's value. And then you just pick which model you have. So the one we have is the low end one. It's LS. It's got 200,000 miles on it. You can say pick your options if you know the options. You can pick and choose. It doesn't change the value that much. So I tend to just say, you're just trying to go quick here, get a general idea of what the price is. It's blue, and we want trade-in and private party values. You can, if you have a car to sell, you can get a cash offer. Again, maybe with another video, I'll go through more details on how some of this Kelley Blue Book stuff works. But don't worry about that for now. Just get your trade-in and private party value. And let's say it's in good condition, just because. It gives us trade-in value, average, so the trade-in range, it's range anywhere from 455 to 1242, and they just give you the average in there, the median of 849. And it's good condition. So if you want to say, well, actually it's not that good, let's go fair, then you see it changes the numbers. And likewise, you can see private party value. So the private party value for that car in fair condition is $1,800. This $1,830 would be the price that somebody would sell it on average, like on Facebook Marketplace. So if you see one for sale and you look at it and you, based on its description, you think it's, fair condition, which means it's a little beat up, it's got some rust on it maybe, interior is pretty worn. Again, this is a 20-year-old car, so it's going to be hard to be one that's going to be in excellent condition. They're going to be fair to good. And then, good might be a little more, $2,100. So that's kind of how you get your number. I would treat them as a guideline, not a rule. The average private sale price, and that's taken from listings that it has access to across the different sites. So their averages, their estimates, they're not gospel. But I do use that trade-in value as kind of a baseline for negotiation. I don't very often go below that number because I think it's fruitless and it's negotiating in bad faith. They're going to be offended. They're going to think you're lowballing them. They're going to blow you off, and you may not get another response from them again. So at the same time, though, if somebody's got a car for sale listed higher than the average private party value, depending on the vehicle, depending on the situation, more often than not, I just move on. They've overpriced the car, and they may be overpricing it, we're willing to come down, but you're going to have to haggle with them just to get down to a high-end normal price. My experience, it's not totally fair all the time. My experience, the stereotype there is that those people are going to be a hassle. The next thing on this list would be doing a VIN search. So the VIN is the vehicle identification number, and every car has one. Every car has a unique one, and it tells you a whole bunch of things about the car. The VIN itself actually gives you a fair amount of information. Manufacturer, year, what plant it was made in, sometimes what kind of options it has, although there's different ways to get the options. And in certain cases, is this real? Like, not is it a real car, but is it really what they say it is? Is it a real Chevelle SS? Is it a real Grand National? Is it a real GTO? Like, the VIN will tell you that. And so getting the VIN and looking that VIN up is a good start. Again, you do it right from your couch. The other thing you can do with the VIN is that VIN is the unique, basically, serial number for that car. And that is tracked everywhere. Anytime anybody interacts with that car in an official capacity, that VIN is recorded as part of it. And all that goes into a national, databases that can be searched. And so you can do a lot of search history. You've probably seen on TV these commercials for Show Me the Carfax, right? That's what they do. Carfax is pulling up vehicle history report on a VIN. So if it's been in an accident, if it's been bought and sold at auction, different where it's been titled, when it's been titled. The previous owners of the car have done service at like a dealership. The dealerships log that, and you'll be able to pull up service records. It used to be there was a number of places where you could do this for free. I find that the free sites are not very useful anymore, and they're dwindling. Most of them, the free sites will just tell you, hey, we found a bunch of stuff, and if you pay us $4.95 or $10.95 or $19.95, we'll tell you what it is. And they always find something, and then you find out that it's nothing. Let's just walk through real quick one of these VIN lookups. This is an auction I bought from when I grew up in Michigan. I'm not affiliated with this auction. I'm not saying you got to buy from here or anywhere else, but I've gotten some good deals here because it's just one you can easily pull up. You know, it's a relatively low-end car. It's an '08 base Equinox, and you can pull the VIN from here. So we'll do a quick VIN history. So here's the VIN down here, right? So we'll grab the VIN from here. There we go. Copy it. And then we'll go here. So this is a site called Bumper. It's a site I've used before. I've used it quite a bit. It's not the be-all end-all. It's relatively inexpensive. Again, I'm not affiliated with Bumper. I don't get any kickback from them. This isn't an advertisement for them in any way. There are better services than this one, but just this one moves quick enough to show you kind of an example of what we're looking at. So here we have that '08 Equinox. Last reported mileage is 155,217. That was in November of this year. So we can go back and look at, what does it say the miles are? 155,222. So that lines up pretty close. It shows 2 accidents reported. So we go detailed history. Had an accident reported in December of this year. We'll see what that was. In Missouri, front right center. This looks like it's actually the same accident. So it showed 2. Actually shows this one in September of 21. So Missouri State Highway Patrol. That was different reports. So maybe. So you know it's been in an accident. So if you go investigate that car, you're going to want to look at its condition and see if you see remnants of that accident. So just some sale histories. So several different auctions: Auto Auction Mall, Car Auction USA, Auto Bidmaster, Bid and Drive. That's a pretty popular nationwide auction site. Sold in Muskegon, Michigan or at least it was for sale in Muskegon, Michigan in October. They probably didn't sell it. They probably took it in on trade. And so it moved from one dealership, Benton Baker Cadillac, to Benton Baker Automotive Group, to their pre-owned center, to auction cars, Showcase Auto Sales. So sometimes these dealerships will sell cars to each other, and then if they can't get them off the lot after a while, they send them to auction. So that's what this is. This is looks like probably a dealer trying to get rid of a car. Ownership history. So it was owned in Missouri in 21, actually 13 and 21. And so somebody brought it to Michigan, apparently, to northern Michigan. It was in Oklahoma when it was bought new at Prospect Motors. So you can see a lot of detail here. So you can see a lot of history, and then it can give you a lot of details about what you're looking for. This doesn't have anything here, but sometimes it'll give you title history as well, and that can be super helpful. So you're looking for, was it ever titled? Was it ever a salvage title? Does it have a clean title? Was it a flood car? Has it been in any major accidents? Again, those sorts of things may not for you be deal breakers. The flood one usually is for me, but it depends. Same thing with salvage and rebuilt cars, right? Like just because they have a salvage title, they were wrecked at one point, they've been repaired, they've been re-inspected to get a new title. Now those inspection processes are, depending on your state, they can be really, really detailed or really, really, high, like 30,000 foot kind of inspection. So you might want to do a little bit of research into your state into what's required to get a rebuilt title and be able to resell a car, and decide whether you're comfortable with that. And maybe at this level, if you're watching this video and you're learning how to do this, for kind of maybe the first time really, I might advise staying away from rebuilt cars for now. And then lastly, if it doesn't have a title, if the seller doesn't have a title, I would just steer clear. You can get titles. A lot of people are going to comment on this, I think, and say, look, no title's not that big a deal. You can get a new title. Yep, so can the seller. If the title's so easy to get, why doesn't the seller just get the title before he sells the car? And getting a title isn't the end of the world. Again, if you're a beginner at this, that's probably like expert level. I'd stay away from anybody that's selling a car with no title. So you've found a bunch of cars, right? You've whittled down to some sort of list. You've done some research on the cars, and you maybe whittled that down a little more. Now you're down to actually asking a seller about the car. So that's the next thing on this is actually contacting and communicating with a seller. Like, I'll just start here because this is my biggest pet peeve with buying and selling really anything on Facebook Marketplace, and that is the people who click the buttons for the canned messages. Hi, is this still available? Can you type a real human question, please? Like, that just drives me nuts to just get over and over and over again. Hi, is this still available? And that's the last thing you ever hear from them. In fact, most of the time now, I don't even answer them. If you're trying to get a good response out of a seller, and spoiler, you should be trying to get a good response out of the seller. If you actually want to have a conversation with them about this vehicle, and you're trying to get yourself a decent deal, the best way to get it is to communicate with them like a person, like an adult. This gets you off on a bad foot right away. This, that you click on an automated message, say, is this available? They click an automated button that says, yes, are you interested? You click a button back saying, right.
I'm going to say 2 words to you right now. I want you to listen to them very, very carefully. Okay, here they are. Stop it!
Stop it?
Yes, S-T-O-P, new word, I-T.
You'll get way more out of this if you spend 5 seconds and put together, an actual question that speaks to them, speaks to the vehicle. They understand that you're really serious and you're really a human being even. So what do you say and what do you not say? I generally don't immediately, hey, when can we meet? I want to ask some questions first. I'm vetting the person as much as I'm vetting the car. Buying something from a stranger is a risky move, guys. Meeting some stranger in a dark alley to buy their car or their computer or their PS5 or their tool, whatever, right? It's risky and you should be real careful. So I ask questions to vet the person as well. Ask some questions about the car itself. Ask as many open-ended questions as you can to get them to give a little more open-ended response. The more you get somebody talking, the more they're going to reveal. At least the more likely they are to reveal something they didn't reveal in the description, and they're not going to reveal in yes or no. Maybe a different problem. Well, it also did this. Well, runs and drives great. Well, okay, it does have this noise, or it's probably going to need brakes, or maybe it's maybe needing shocks. Like, it does run and drive great, but it has some other issues that they left out. And you can probe through and get them chatty and get them talking about what else is going on with that car. You want it to be on the up and up. And if it is, then they should be perfectly willing to talk about it and open up about their history with the car. And if they're going to, wheel and deal, they're far more likely to do it with somebody they believe is serious and actually gives 2 craps than somebody just clicking buttons. I know that some of these descriptions get kind of wordy and people aren't really great with punctuation, and so sometimes it's hard to make sense of what's being said in the description. But I avoid asking questions that are already in the description. Read them from beginning to end. Nothing annoys a seller more, other than is this still available? Second most annoying thing, I guess I'll say, is somebody who asks a question that's already been answered. If you don't care enough to read the description, you probably aren't really worth their time, and they're not going to give it to you. I tend to avoid negotiation and price in the text conversations, particularly like something like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, where you're emailing back and forth. Again, it sets you off on kind of a bad start to this whole deal, this whole relationship. And when you already start dickering on price before you even have met the person and you've even looked at the item, like, how do you even know what it's worth if you haven't even looked at it yet? For most people, unless they're real desperate, there's no real motivation to negotiate on price at that point, and they tend to be pretty turned off by doing it. But however, I will ask, especially if I think the number's a little high, I will ask them if there's room. Is there some wiggle room? Are you firm on the price? Sometimes they'll say they're firm, but they're saying they're firm because they don't want somebody, they're selling a car for $3,000 and somebody message them saying, would you take $1,500? Like, well, no, I'm not gonna take $1,500. So you think by putting, no, I'm firm on the price, you're gonna weed out those guys, and maybe you do. But even if they say it, I'll ask them, how firm are you? Say you're firm on price, how firm are we? Is there any room at all? I'm not setting up the fact that I'm going to try to beat you up on the price. What I'm saying is, without having seen it yet, if I find some issues, I'd like to know that there's some room here. If you're at the max of what I'm willing to spend, what the market would warrant for that vehicle, like I'll keep shopping. It's not going to end up at near the top of my list of drive out there and take a look at this car. Because I generally think that there's always something. There's always something that's not in the description. It's not been revealed. Maybe they didn't even know. And so if they're just dead firm on the price, then those things aren't going to matter that much. But if they express at least a vibe, like somebody will say, I'll say, how firm are you on price? And they'll respond to me, well, I need this, so I'm pretty firm. Well, that's not a committed firm. And I may then be, okay, so there's probably some wiggle room here, especially if I get out there and find out, oh yeah, it's got a bad battery, or the tires are bald, and we're gonna have to put money into tires. So, well, I need to move this number down a little bit to make room for some of these repairs. And then, oh, okay, all right, like they get understanding about it. Somebody who's just like, no, I'm dead set. And most people aren't as dead set as they say, but if they say it, I tend to put that one down my list a little bit. Again, not a deal breaker, just a piece of data. If you are going to negotiate, it's helpful. I think it's sort of the nice thing to do. I think it's the professional thing to do, in good faith, to set that expectation. Hey, how firm are you on price? And they know when you come, you're probably going to talk about price. Some people like to just pretend they're going to be a full price cash offer. They show up and offer, significantly less money on it in hopes that the person won't want them to walk away. This would be a level of desperation. And as a purely negotiating success tactic, that's probably a good one. I mean, I'm sure it works. That's not how I negotiate. I think that's bad faith. I think that's kind of a jerk move. And I'm more focused on what's the right, doing things the right way. I don't want to just spring a lowball offer on them and hope they either take it or well, I don't know, can you meet halfway? Honestly, I'm not a fan of manipulative negotiations, and I think you get farther with being honest. And even if you don't, I sleep better as a result of it. You get more flies with honey kind of thing. My sort of mantra, I guess, is don't be a Richard. So how do you kick this conversation off? What's the getting off on the right foot mean, right? We have talked about all the ways you can get off on the wrong foot. I would go back to things like, what are some known issues, right? I talked about this before. This car has a history of needing transmission in 100 to 150,000 miles. And now you're at the 150,000 mile mark. Hey, have you noticed any transmission slipping and noticed any transmission issues? Well, actually, we just replaced the transmission about 3 years ago. Okay? So, or nope, nothing. Well, that means it's coming. Don't take those responses as, well, that means this one must have a really good transmission. No, they were all the same. What it means is the transmission problems haven't happened yet. Now, I'm just using transmissions as an example. Just the point is, when you have a vehicle that you have enough research that says over a period of time these things will fail, and they haven't failed on this car, then that means they're going to, and they're going to when you have to pay for it, not when they had to pay for it. Even if not, it still starts that with, I'm interested in this car. Right? That's the tone of that message. One, I am interested. I'm a real buyer, right? So that seller is going to engage you. And two, you at least come off as a much more knowledgeable buyer. And another question you can toss out there is, why are you selling it? So the different answers to that question can give you a little bit of the motivation. Sometimes you can use that motivation to your advantage. Like, it's taking up space in my driveway, my yard, and I'm tired of it. Well, they may be a little more motivated than they're willing to admit. This was my kid's first car. Well, on one hand, as a car guy, right, I try to keep my kids' cars working well and safe because that's my kids. But it's also a kid owned the car. We'll just leave it at that. Again, just another piece of information you want to slide into your little mental manila folder about this car. If they mention any issues in the description, however minor those might be, ask them about them. Ask them for a little more detail if they can provide it. Asking about different issues about the car can also be a decent, I guess, smell test of sorts. How legitimate is this deal? How much do they really know about the car? Runs great, just needs a tune-up. Why does it need a tune-up? What is it about the behavior of the car that makes you think it needs a tune-up? I'm not saying it doesn't need a tune-up. Why do you think it needs a tune-up? Sometimes, people think, when a car is not running good, well, it probably just needs a tune-up without really understanding what does a tune-up even mean and what problems would it actually solve. But the other one is they just think that's what people think, and so they can say it just needs a tune-up because there actually really is a more serious issue. I'll give you an example. It was a Dodge Dakota we looked at. The guy said two things. It's got two major problems. It needs a tune-up, and it's leaking oil from the valve cover gasket. And you can see a little bit of oil around it. The valve cover was on the, I believe it was on the passenger side, and it was covered in a bunch of air boxes and hoses. You couldn't really see it very well, but you could see the oil around it, that kind of dirty oil, like road dirt and dust and whatnot mixed with the oil. So, yep, it definitely has an oil leak. Okay, it was cheap. Valve cover gasket's not really that big a deal. We'll maybe figure out the mist. So it wasn't the big deal that it would sputter, I guess is how he put it a little bit. So I bought it, got it home. Let's get this valve cover gasket fixed before we, get too far. And I started to take all the stuff off and noticed that the valve cover had a hole in it. It was cracked. Valve covers don't get holes in them, right? It didn't crack from the outside. It cracked from the inside. When I took the valve cover off, like whole chunks of one of the rockers and a lifter, and they're just pieces of it. And then it had bounced around in there and beat up on the aluminum head, so there were chunks of aluminum everywhere. Obviously, it's missing on the cylinder because it blew apart. Not because it's got bad plugs, not because it needs a tune-up. It needs a rebuild. Everybody has something that's a quote-unquote easy fix, and I always ask the question, then why don't you just fix it? Ask about the title. I talked about the titles before, what to stay away from, what's good or bad, but ask about the title. Do you have a clean title? And is it in the seller's name? So not just does it have a clean title, but does it have a clean title in their name? Not in their brother's name, not in their friend's name, or their friend's dad's name, right? Only the titled owner of the vehicle legally can sell that car. A lot of gray area and wiggle room in what people actually do when it comes to buying and selling cars. Again, you're at this beginner buying, selling used car phase, and you're asking the kinds of questions that you're watching a video like this to answer. That's what I would tell you. Look for a title in the seller's name. You can also go ask for a VIN. If they're hesitant to give it to you, that's another red flag, and I would be questioning why. What's the point? It's not private, right? It's not confidential to them. It doesn't give any personal identifiable information. It gives vehicle identifiable information, hence the number. And that's what you want. You want to know the vehicle's history. I might even take that a step further and say, if you ask somebody for the VIN and they give you a lot of crap about it or won't give it to you, and just say, come look at the car, then I'd move on. I'd ignore them. I wouldn't pursue that car much further, because I think that's gonna, just the odds are there's some agenda or issue here. Like I said at the beginning, as far as initiating the conversation and what's good and bad, like a lot of things you're doing here, you're trying to get some more information about the car, you're trying to get some more information about the seller themselves, and you're just trying to get them talking. The more they talk, the more they're willing to tell you, the nicer they're going to treat you, and the more willing they are going to be to negotiate with you. Don't take for granted the level of appreciation people have of being treated like adults. Especially at the beginning, if you hang on to the end here, I'll give you some things to watch out for that are almost assuredly some sort of gotcha or a scam. Stay away from these. Like, don't even communicate with them if you can avoid it. The first one is fake listings. Like, there's a lot of these postings out there for cars that are not even real. The car doesn't exist. It's either stock photos or photos of somebody else's car or a plagiarized listing from somewhere else outside your region, and they just repost the same posting in your area and try to get you eventually to send them some money. Some guy's got a car in another state, and you send him this, and he'll ship it to you, and he's got a uncle in Argentina or whatever, right? Like, it's all a scam to try to scam people out of either personal information or money or both. But one way you can see this is, so on Facebook Marketplace especially, if you go into the posting and you click on the person's name, it'll give you their marketplace profile. And if you see that same item like 10, 12 times and you start clicking through them, and this one's in Salt Lake City, and this one's in Oakland, California, and this one's in Dallas, Texas, and this one's in Miami, Florida, like, okay, this is not a real car. Postings that have pictures that are actually pictures of other pictures. Yeah, I said that right. Somebody that you see the pictures of like landscape versus portrait, and you can see the border on it. They didn't crop the photo, or it's a picture of a post, like somebody take a Craigslist ad, post a screenshot as the picture in the Facebook ad. That's probably not legit. Like, this is going to sound mean, but just about any idiot can post a picture on Facebook. So, like, they make it pretty easy. That's the whole point. That's the reason why it's so popular. So if there's insufficient pictures, so if there's like 2 pictures of, maybe they're the same picture, like it's the front end and then the front end again, like, what are we doing here? I'm not suggesting as a buyer that if you don't have 25 pictures of every nook and cranny of this car, you should stay away. But if you have 2 pictures that are both of the nose cone of the car, like, what are we doing? And if you got to ask them for pictures, I have one ad that was like that, and I said, "Do you have any other pictures?" "Yes." "Can you send me some more pictures?" "Yes." "Are we ever gonna actually get any pictures? Like interior pictures?" "Yeah, I'll take some tonight." "What do you mean you'll take some? You don't have any pictures of the interior of your car that you're selling?" And then, of course, they didn't, right? Tonight came and went, and 2 days came and went, and no interior pictures of the car. It may be a legitimate sale, but it's a sketchy one at best. And again, just move it along. The people who post just needs a little TLC or a mechanic special or something like that. That's usually indicative of something seriously wrong with the car. And they don't want to tell you what it is because it's scary and you probably won't buy their car. Sometimes that really is true. Somebody who's not a real car person and is selling a car, and to them it's a little dirty, the seats are stained, the plastic's cracked inside, it's a 12, 15, 20-year-old car. It's got 150 or 200,000 miles on it, so it creaks and whines and groans, and as old cars are, apt to do. And they think, this car isn't very nice anymore, so it needs a little TLC. So that's one end of the TLC. The other end is it needs ball joints, and the steering doesn't work, and it's off in alignment, and it's missing on cylinder 5. So it just needs a little TLC, just a little freshening up. That's the other end of that spectrum. So ask some questions, but that's usually an immediate, at least a yellow flag for me when they say there's something wrong with the car. But they don't tell you what it is, and they immediately tell you it's not that big a deal. Real evasive communication is another one. So that's another reason why I push on asking questions before you go out and look at the car, because those evasive answers can be another red flag. Generally bad communication. I'm not saying somebody who maybe, like, they're not trying to be discriminatory against people who don't speak English as a primary language, but that is a thing, right? Like, if you're gonna have a hard time communicating with them because you don't speak the same language, you maybe want to maybe move on to somebody who speaks English. The back and forth with different languages can be really hard. Obviously, we live in the United States. America is a bit of a melting pot. We have all kinds of cultures and languages. So these things can be true simultaneously. You can be respectful of the melting pot nature of the United States, and also, yeah, but I don't necessarily want to buy your car. Likewise, though, just because somebody speaks perfect English and speaks clearly doesn't mean they have a good car either, right? Doesn't mean they're not a scammer either. They just are better at it. So that's why you want to pay attention to the communication, that real evasive communication, right? If they don't answer the question you've asked, or they answer a different question, like I had one that was similar. Like, I asked, "Do you have pictures?" And the response was, "Yes, it's available." Right? They didn't even pay attention to what I asked. So that's a red flag. Somebody who won't communicate in Messenger. They just blow you off, or they respond but tell you to communicate with them in a different way. Call this number. Email me at this address. Let's just meet. When do you want to meet? Like, they don't even answer your questions. Those can be real super risky, right? Because you have, like, I don't do Facebook Messenger. Yes, you do. You just answered me in Facebook Messenger, so I know you have it. So let's just talk right here. And I'm not giving you my personal phone number. I'm not giving you my address. I'm not gonna meet you in a dark alley somewhere till we've have some conversation here. I realize there are some people who just don't like texting, right? They don't like Facebook Messenger. They just want to talk on the phone. They're kind of old school. I know guys like that. Just talk on the phone. And I can respect that old school nature. There's a lot of ways that I'm pretty old school as well. My experience, however, has been when I get those messages, when I message somebody about buying their car and their response to me is, "Call me at this number," or email me at this email address, whatever. Like they change the communication style. It's never gone well. It's never landed with even the hint of having a decent car for sale. Most of the time, I got to the point where I didn't believe they ever had a car for sale at all. They're just trying to scam me somehow. And so my spidey sense at this point now says, just stay away from that. As soon as they say, call me at this number, then it just, I've done it a few times. Probably more than a few. I've done it maybe 8 or 10 times that I've had that conversation. None of them have ever worked out. Dealers who are posting as private sellers. So just this a guy, it's his name, he posts his car for sale, and then you look at his seller profile and he's got like 19 cars for sale. Well, that's not your average guy down the street. I've bought and sold a lot of cars, but I've never had that. So in fact, in most states, it's a requirement if you buy and sell over a certain amount of cars in a given calendar year, you actually have to have a dealer's license. So if he has that many cars for sale, he's probably a dealer or works at a dealer. So if I think they might be a dealer, that's my first question. Are you a dealer? And if so, what is your dealer fee? Because there's always a dealer fee. So that when there's a dealer involved, the price you see on Facebook is not the price you're going to pay. Almost never. Title, tag, etc., tax, and their title fee is going to be upcharged. Their registration and tag generation is going to be upcharged. It's going to be more expensive than you can go down to your local Secretary of State, DMV, tax collector, whatever your state has for titling and plating a vehicle. You doing it on your own is cheaper than paying them to do it because that's a service they're offering you. So that's going to be tacked on to the price of the car. And then there's always a dealer fee. Dealer fees will range widely. And again, there are some different state-by-state regulations as to what those dealer fees can be and how they have to disclose them. So know your state and know what the rules are, and always ask, what's the dealer fee? What's the out-the-door price? You've probably heard that term before. That's what you actually want to know. If you're going to show up to that place and look at that car, you want to know not the $1,500 they have it for sale on Facebook. What's the out-the-door price? Well, it's $2,295. Aha! That's a huge difference, right? $795, if I did the math right. Yeah, so that's good to know before you show up there, because once you show up there, now they've kind of got you. That's their goal. Their goal is to get you on the lot and get you talking to a salesperson. And then they're trained to sell, and they're trained to overcome all of the objections that you have, including the guy, well, I just don't have that much money, so I can't do this. Deal's off. But we can do financing. What if we did a 2-year financing? Why don't you put your $1,500 down? We can finance the rest of it. As long as you make a certain amount a week, or you show me a real pay stub. Like, man, those are all very dangerous places, and I would steer clear of them. So to wrap this up, like I said before, all these come with risks. Well, but Ryan said, or you said, nope, I don't want to hear that. We're talking about cheap cars here. And I said there's dishonest. We talk about the different scams and gotchas. There are dishonest people out there that are trying to sneak something in. There are also people who just don't know there's problems with their car. And the crossover point goes from good to bad. And it could very well have been good or be good in the ownership of one person. And 2 weeks after you buy that car, it goes bad. That does not make them a scammer. It does not make them dishonest. That's just the risk of buying an old, high mileage, cheap used car. At some point, you're going to have to put money into this car. That point may be tomorrow. It may be a year from now. That's the risk you're assuming for the value you're getting for the car. I mean, I'm not trying to prop myself up as some sort of know-it-all in this process. I don't know it all. I've bought a lot of bad cars. I've bought a lot of good cars. I've got a lot of good deals, and I've gotten some bad deals over the years. And I've learned from the bad ones, and I've learned from the bad cars and the bad deals and mistakes I've made and tried to adjust, and will continue to, because that'll happen to me, I'm sure, in the future. I'll buy more bad cars. I'll get more bad deals. My goal is to have the good ones outweigh the bad ones and learn from the bad ones to get more good ones, right? So hopefully you can learn from some of my mistakes. This is where most of this comes from. Most of this information comes from, I think you're getting a good deal, but you just miss on something, and those misses sting, especially as a car guy, right? As somebody who for most of my friends and family, I'm the most knowledgeable car guy they know. And sometimes it doesn't work out, and I feel bad because I feel like I'm supposed to know this. And I didn't, and I missed it. A little bit of a hit to the car guy ego. And I hope that you learn from these mistakes, and that way maybe you don't have to also make them and learn from them. You can make your own and learn from those mistakes, and you get even farther ahead than I am. If you're willing to share your mistakes you've made, post them down below, whether it be now or in the past, some other ways other people can learn, or that I can learn, ways that you've thought you were getting a good deal and didn't. And likewise, what are some other tips and tricks that you might have for how you communicate, how you find cars, where you look, where are the best deals to be had. I'm sure we could all benefit from that too. I maybe do some other ones in here, sort of fireside chat style. I don't know, like different vlogs about the buying and selling process, auctions. We're going to be going to an auto auction here pretty soon to look at some cars for my daughter, and so maybe we'll document that. Not, you know, like a Mecum or Barrett Jackson style auction, but something that's a little more value driven. If you have specific things about buying and selling you might be interested, holler at me, throw me a message or comment down below. I'd love to hear it. And maybe we'll do more of these. As always, I hope it helps you. You know, these things can be kind of a mystery and scary. Maybe you can help alleviate some of that and get you off on a better foot. So appreciate you watching. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.